sound better.
So Moses here with another video for w.a.production. And now I was listening to the most recent Zeds Dead track, POWA. And I really liked the first bass line that they use. It's also a bass line that reminds me a bit of Noisias' straight hook. So I thought in this video that we'd do a little rundown of kind of how they might go about creating it. And I've also really wanted to use this bass line in my own tracks, so I put my own little spin on it. And so we're just going to walk through the stages of kind of getting this super powerful, kind of plucky bass stab that is great to be used in neurofunk tracks, dubstep tracks, breakbeat tracks. And it's a really great addition to your sound design library. So we're going to jump in, look at a few of the techniques I've employed, and hopefully you'll be able to take this away and use it in your own tracks to create some banging beats. So let's get into it. So here's a little preview of the sound we're going to be making. So you can hear that it's kind of got some vowel qualities to it. It's also quite plucky and percussive. There's a few ways that I did this. We've mainly been working in Serum. We've also got the X Records OCT, as well as a little bit of isotope trash, just to add a bit of colour to the sound. So I'm going to walk through kind of from left to right how we've gone about making this sound and the kind of principles I've employed to get the kind of vowel-y qualities and to make it sound super fat and stand out on a speaker system. Now, I've started this with just the sub oscillator. And I'm just going to solo the channel, so we just have the sub. So it's super boring at the moment. The sub's just there just to provide a little bit of weight to the sound and just provide those low frequencies that really carry across in a mix. I've then added in oscillator A, which is just a very simple analog bass drum sine. Now I really like these because they've got a nice kind of attack to them because they are normally intended to be used as a bass drum foundation kind of waveform. I've then got a remap running, which is just on full, which just manipulates the waveform a little bit so we get something a bit more like this. You can hear that it's got a super nice kick and adds that kind of percussive kind of quality that we want to really make this kind of pluck work. I then haven't put any unison on it because I want it to be a very mono sound for the foundation. We've also added the noise. Now, there are a few different options you can use for the noise, but I preferred to go for the kick sound. This again is just quite nice because it just provides us with a little bit of kind of attack with the sound. There's also an LFO being routed to it, which kind of makes it come and attacking a bit slowly than the bass drum kind of sine wave. So I'll just run you through this now. Just provides a nice bit of crispiness to the sound. It also kind of introduces that vowel quality that we're looking for. I found that with just the bass drum sine in, it kind of didn't have that quality, and it's good when you're making vowel sounds to start from the beginning with that as the intention, rather than creating a sound and then trying to make the vowels happen using formants and EQs. Now, the majority of this sound actually comes from the beat oscillator, which is just a PWM C64. This whole patch is made using entirely Serum-based waveforms. I haven't used any third-party waveforms or custom ones so that anybody can follow along without having too much trouble. Now, it is worth investigating the Serum third-party waveforms because you can really start creating and crafting some unique sounds that you don't normally find within Serum. Now, we've kind of, I'll click into it so you can see it. We've got the wavetable position around here. I found that having the wavetable position here kind of created quite a nice wide sound and also brought in a lot of the characteristics of the PWM kind of waveform. We've then got a bend plus happening with some little bits of modulation going on. There's also a bit of fine tuning down just to detune it a little bit. And that's pretty much it with the oscillators. Whilst you can get really in depth with creating very custom, interesting shapes of oscillators and making the wavetable positions frequency modulate each other and getting some wacky sounds, I personally prefer using the filter and post-processing to get those kind of sounds. So we're going to move on to the filter section and then we're going to take a little look at the effects to kind of see how we've got these oscillators that at the moment sound a bit plain and boring to kind of really come to life in the track. So I've actually used a slightly different filter. I've used one of the multi-filters, and that is the low bandpass and the high pass at the 24. So what this is doing is it just creates a really nice kind of bit of resonance. So I'll just play it so you can see what I mean. Now I've left the A oscillator out because we're actually going to be affecting that in the FX section using the filter. It's sometimes quite nice to use the first filter in Serum to kind of provide some colour and taste, while using the second filter to kind of provide the control that we might want that we achieve with the filtering. The other thing I really like about this kind of multi-filter is you have this morph feature, which as you move kind of changes you through the different ranges from a kind of low pass to a kind of band pass and then all the way up to a high pass. With the resonance up, this kind of creates these kind of slightly odd filter shapes, which when you play them back, sounds a lot better compared to, say, just a low pass. You can hear it just introduces a bit of colour to the sound. There's then a little bit of drive happening on the filter, but other than that, there's not that much going on. Now, you can see here there are a few different LFOs, and you can see that I've actually started off the LFOs all a bit late. This is to kind of get that slightly delayed percussive sound. Now, the reason I've done this is that we could have had the kind of LFO starting in the beginning, but then it will just be a straight pluck. Having it like this enables the sound to kind of have a bit of a lead in, and kind of gives it a bit of that off-kilter feeling, which provides a bit of interest to the listener. It's really great to use these kind of techniques when you're making sound design to kind of throw off the listener and give them something they haven't quite heard before. There are a lot of examples of people using very strange and unique kind of triplet style LFOs on stuff, which just kind of set the whole thing offbeat a little bit, and like I said, kind of provide a bit of interest to something that can otherwise start sounding a bit boring. Something else to note is we also have envelope 3 here with a very short decay just on the coarse and semitones of the two oscillators. Now this is just to provide a bit of impact with the initial hit to really make the pluck stand out a bit. You can really hear the difference it makes when we kind of take the attack up so that it takes a longer time to happen. It just again provides a little bit of impact on the beginning of each sound. Now, you can obviously make this mono and do all the legato things that you want, but as this was a constant sound, I decided not to have it on. So that's pretty much it with the oscillators and filter section. Now we'll take a little look at the effects and kind of see how we bring the sound to life using the post-processing in Serum. So you can see that I've got these stacks in quite a specific way. It's always good to really think about how you line up your Serum effects, because what happens with one can greatly affect the sound of the next one. And if you have them in slightly different orders, you can create very varying kind of sound palettes with them. So when you do create a sound in Serum, even if you have the effects set up, it's always worth playing around with the order just to see if you can't get any kind of happy surprises with it. So first in the chain is just the hyper and the dimension. Now this isn't really doing much, it's just providing a little bit of width and space. You do want to be careful using this on bass sounds because it does provide a lot of stereo information and sometimes the detuning can be a bit distasteful. Again, this is mainly to use to taste, and also always bear in mind that you want to keep your bass sounds nice and kind of centered so that they have the maximum impact. We then have an EQ. Now this EQ is pretty important because as you can see it's just a high pass and a low pass. And what these are doing is they're just providing quite a lot of the resonance to the sound. You can see we have LFO2 kind of manipulating it. Now again, you don't really notice it without some of the distortion applied, but this will come in very useful towards the end of the process when we use the distortion and OTTs to really crank up the sound of this. We then have a filter with just a low 6 on it, just to kind of tame that top end sound a little bit. We then can apply some drive here, but I decided not to for this sound. We then have the Serum's inbuilt compressor on the multiband mode, because I mean, who really uses it in anything other than multiband mode? And you can hear that this is doing a lot of the heavy lifting with kind of picking up the mid and the high frequencies and really bringing them out a bit. And it also kind of brings back some of that kind of vocal tonal quality that we want. I was using some formants to make the kind of vocal sounds, but I actually kind of shied away from it and ended up just using the compressor, which again kind of feeds back into how it's good to start from the ground up to think about how you're going to vocalize the synth using the waveforms and some of the LFOs to actually do the heavy lifting. And then we have a small reverb. Now obviously if we want some more bass, we can kind of adjust it and we can kind of decrease and increase them into taste. And just all around, the compressor in multiband mode in Serum is really great for just really honing in on the frequencies that you want. So as you'll notice, I haven't actually used the distortion. Now we could put it on and put it onto something crazy like Dive 1. But the problem I was finding with using the distortion was that it was just muddying the sound a bit too much and we were losing that percussive quality that we really wanted. So all I've done is simply set up another OTT as a standalone plugin this time. And that's it without it. Because this is kind of overdriving it a little bit as well, and it kind of is bringing out the distortion qualities that we want without actually distorting the sound necessarily. And it's still keeping it super percussive and nice and tight. We then also have Isotope Trash, and I'm not doing anything particularly interesting in this. I've just got it set on the 10-inch spike distortion with a bit more drive than it gives you as a preset, just to add a little bit of colour and texture to the sound. But you can hear, because we've got it on after the OTT, all it's doing is picking up the frequencies we're accenting with the OTT and really bringing them to life without mudging up the sound and picking up that unwanted bass frequencies that we've got. Of course, if you have trash, then you can feel free to experiment, because if you select different things, you get very different qualities out of the sound. But I preferred it on 10-inch spike personally. Now that pretty much sums it up for this video. I was kind of aiming to do a kind of quick Serum quickfire thing, and I hope that you can pick this up and take it and use it in some of your own tracks and use some of the methods I've used to get the kind of plucky, resonant quality sounds out of your own music. Again, this is super useful in kind of the more aggressive bass genres, especially stuff like neurofunk drum and bass and dubstep. So I hope you have a great time using this sound in your productions. And please drop a comment if you make anything using these techniques. Remember to subscribe for more content and like the video if this has helped you. Until the next video, peace out.